The ice had helped a little with the swallowing, but my eye was still going through different ranges of colors. Red, green, and purple were the ones it had chosen for us today. I was more colorful than Brooklyn on Pride weekend. I spent the morning alone, and I finally finished reading all of the code. The few questions I had, I asked Jarvis, and, to my surprise, it was able to answer me with a lot of detail. It was amazing how big Jarvis was. It was everywhere. According to Stark, it even controlled a big part of the company. I suspected Stark also used it for his Iron Man suit. It was the perfect sidekick for anything he had to do. During the day, I talked more and more to it. I wanted to see how broad its vocabulary and answer repertoire was. It gave more conversation than all the boys I had ever talked to put together. It became clear that it wasn't just a finite database. It learned and evolved. With each passing second, it became smarter. Of course, it had its limitations, but it was a pretty amazing AI. I was rereading some of my notes when Stark came into the lab. As always, he was absent-minded, reading something on a tablet. He went straight to one of his computers and started typing. I sat there, very self-aware of my eye and amazed that he hadn't noticed. "Jarvis told me about your little request," he said. "And?" I asked. "I allowed it. I'm curious about that drive too," he told me. "Turns out you've been pronouncing it wrong all along. I blame our schools." "Dietrich. It's German. It means key or code breaker." "It's Hydra's." What? The thought of it being Hydra's hadn't even crossed my mind. My chest tightened. Hydra had been destroyed, but it hadn't completely disappeared. What if someone else knew of the drive and came looking for it? "Yeah. Where did you say you got it from?" he asked. "I found it on the bus 3 years ago," I said, remembering very clearly how weird I thought the drive was when I first saw it. I had taken it without giving it much thought, planning on taking it apart and playing with the little board. But then I tried it back at home. I was shocked when I realized what it could do. It was under a seat. Someone from Hydra must have left it there for another agent to pick up. They must have been pretty surprised when they didn't find it. Stark hummed, frowning, still typing something. "I finished reading," I informed him. "Good," he said without stopping. "What do I do now?" I pressed. "You're going to help me retire." I frowned. "You saw how Jarvis controls the Iron Legion?" he said, and I hummed in response. "And I control Jarvis?" "Yeah." "I want to erase myself from the equation," he said. "How do you suppose we can—" He stopped the second he unglued his eyes from the screen and saw me. What happened there?" he asked. I quickly shuffled the many comebacks I came up with. "I messed up with the eyeliner," I said, looking at him dead in the eye. "You got in a fight," he said, surprised. "It wasn't a fight," I mumbled. "It was boxing training, and I was the bag." "Does it hurt?" he asked. He sounded genuinely concerned. "Only all the time," I joked and shrugged it off. "I know how to take a punch." "Did Leslie take a look at you?" he asked. "Yeah." "What did she say?" "What's there to say?" I thought out loud. "She probably thinks I'm going back into old habits." He frowned and rested on his chair, waiting for me to continue. I tried really hard not to look at his direction, so I looked down. I wasn't proud of this part of my history. When I started getting into hacking, before I had the D-tree thingy, I got caught a couple of times. I got pretty beaten up. I rolled my eyes, laughing. Now it all seems so stupid. Looking back at it, how I took all those risks unnecessarily. I shook my head. So I started picking fights, to learn how to defend myself for the next time. Leslie found out and we got into a huge argument. She even told me she would call the cops on me.
Did she?
He asked, interested. I smirked and shook my head. Nah. Huh, was all he said. I pushed the memories away and tried to focus on the project. How could I make the Iron Legion independent of Stark? An idea hit me then, and I started to work around it.
Did you get into fights when you were in juvie?
He suddenly asked. I stopped typing. He was staring at me, seriously curious. Or maybe worried. Not intentionally, I said. I know I have a big mouth. It gets me in trouble from time to time, but it's part of my winning personality. He scoffed. I always lose. I added, looking down, thinking about those times. Someone always had an excuse to pick a fight. There was a hierarchy, and everybody wanted to climb. It was like school, but I got punched more often. I chuckled.
Sounds awful,
he said. It sucked, I said. I tried to stay low. I wouldn't really talk, and I wasn't even allowed near technology. I caressed the keyboard. This is nice for a change. I frowned. Juvie was a horrible place. Maybe I had been unlucky with the place. Maybe not all of them were like that. I honestly had no intention of finding out.
I bet it is,
he said pensively. He looked at his watch and then stood up.
Come on,
he ordered. What?
We're going to the gym,
he stated. The laughter that came out of me was almost guttural. I cleared my throat.
Sorry,
what?
The gym, come on.
He was leaving. I was dumbfounded. I just followed him, not knowing what to even think. We took the elevator 1 or 2 levels down. The doors opened to a wide room with workout machines. The worst kind of machines. And a boxing ring in the middle of it. There were only 2 guys there. One of them was lifting weights while talking to the other, who I presumed was a trainer. The sweatshirt with "trainer" written on it may have given me a clue.
I'm pretty sure you can find something to wear in there,
Stark said, pointing to the locker room to the right.
Go change.
Me? I said. He nodded. What about you? Does your suit turn into Spanx? He smiled.
I'm just watching today.
I had found some comfy clothes in the locker room. I didn't want to think about whom they belonged to, or even if they were clean. Working out. Ugh, I hated it. Always had, always will. I couldn't understand how people would put themselves through such torture. And now my boss wanted me to do it. Civilizations had rebelled for less. I stepped out to the gym and saw Stark talking with the weights guy. I came closer. I didn't recognize him.
Great,
Stark said, somewhat excited when he saw me. Who's this? The blonde guy asked. He was cute, I decided. He had piercing blue eyes and seemed nice.
This Spartan is a stray,
Stark joked. I narrowed my eyes and he dressed the trainer.
Owen, would you help Miss Atwood out?
Beware,
she thinks a crunch is something you eat.
Huh. I faked a laugh and Owen took me away. How about we warm up running a little? He proposed, trying to be enthusiastic. He could have said, warm up killing puppies. I would have looked at him the same. I glared at Stark. I was going to kill him. Half an hour after that glorious proposal, I thought they would have to take me home in an ambulance. I refused to complain out loud, out of fear of being mocked by stupid Iron Man. Owen was restless. After watching me run, or try to, for half an hour. He wanted me to do more things. If he wanted to watch someone exercise so badly, he could have looked it up on YouTube. There was no need of putting me through the ordeal. He gave me boxing gloves and told me to punch a bag. It had a screen on the top that said how hard I was punching it and what had been the high score. He punched it once, very lightly, and set the first high score. I punched it and had to laugh to save my pride. My numbers were lower than S.H.I.E.L.D.'s popularity poll numbers. I was putting my name to shame. Stark got closer and made a sign to Owen so he would go. Owen told me he would see me the next time, which I prayed would be never, and Stark calmly started talking to me.
So, what do you think of our little project? He asked.
I punched the bag again, and my number didn't go up. I'll be honest, Stark, I panted.
Sir, he interrupted.
What?
I'll be honest, sir, he corrected.
He was actually telling me to call him sir. What the fuck?
I'll be honest, sir. I punched the bag again and my number stayed the same.
I licked my lips and looked at him. I don't know how to move forward. Your Iron Legion is top of the line. There's nothing better than them.
I know, he said.
You want to retire, right? To leave them to their own devices. But they have to be commanded by someone, I reasoned. Maybe if you sold them to the military...
No, he said. I don't do that anymore.
Then I don't know what else to do, I stated, throwing my hands to the air. He narrowed his eyes.
Yes, you do, he said.
You knew all this some hours ago,
but you were working nonstop on something. What is it?
I don't think you're going to like it, I said.
He rose his brow, urging me to continue.
We can't program protocols for every possible case, I said. Not when there are so many unknown variables. But what if we didn't have to? What if they could improvise as you do? He didn't seem to agree with the improvisation part, but he got the gist.
You're thinking AI, he said.
Yes.
Jarvis is AI, he countered.
I'm thinking beyond Jarvis.
I like that, he said.
There's one problem, though, I continued. Even with what we have right now, that kind of AI is years away.
Then we should start right away, he said.
I was going to punch again, but stopped. Really? I asked, surprised. I honestly had thought he would forget about it right there and then. That the mere thought of someone considering that Jarvis could be bettered would be too much for his ego. But he nodded, giving me the green light. I smiled. You're more ambitious than I thought, Stark.
Sir, he corrected again.
I pursed my lips, hating that word. Sir. I punched the bag again and looked at my score, hopeful. But the high score stayed the same. God damn it, I said. I was getting very frustrated. There was no fucking way that stupid number was going up. I dried my sweat on my shirt and tried to regain my breath. This was stupid. My arms were sore, and I wanted to sit down. Fuck. Why was this so hard?
You should use your hips,
a woman said behind me. You should shut your mouth, I countered, turning around, and my blood left my face. I knew that redhead. I had seen her all over the news. She used to be KGB, then S.H.I.E.L.D., and now she was right in front of me, with a surprised smile on her face. This woman could kill me by blinking, and wouldn't even think twice about it. Fucking Black Widow. Natasha Romanoff. She looked at Stark, not saying a word.
We're working on it, he said,
excusing me somehow.
She nodded slowly, turned around, and walked towards the blonde guy at the end of the room.
Barton. I turned to Stark. The color had not yet returned to my face. Well, you were right, he said. You have a really big mouth, but I'm not so sure about the winning personality. He checked his watch and started to walk to the exit. The car will be waiting for you. Go home, kid. My heart was still racing, and I could feel a tingling in my chest. Adrenaline? I needed to shake it off. I turned around and punched the bag again, as hard as I could, moving my hips with my body. I looked at the number in silence and saw it climb as it hadn't in the last hour. I passed Owen's stupid high score and even set a new one. Shit, I whispered. I darted my eyes towards the redhead and saw her and Barton looking at me. I gathered the little pride I still had left and went home.